Pour yourself an afternoon coffee right now. You'll feel sharper in 20 minutes. Tonight, while you sleep, that same caffeine will quietly cut your muscle repair in half, and you won't feel a thing. Walk into any commercial gym in the late afternoon. Half the lifters have a coffee, an energy drink, or a pre-workout still in their bloodstream. Most of them drank it hours ago, somewhere between 2 and 4 p.m., and by now it feels like background, barely a stimulant at all. The pitch they've been sold is reasonable. Caffeine helps you push harder, squeeze out more reps, train through fatigue. Performance research backs all of that up. What nobody mentions is the bill that arrives 8 hours later, in the dark, when your body is supposed to be rebuilding what you just broke. When you train hard, a molecule called adenosine accumulates in your tissues. It's the molecular receipt for energy spent. Adenosine binds receptors in the brain, primarily A1 and A2A, and that binding is part of how your nervous system schedules its recovery window. Specifically, it helps drive the first deep stage of sleep, called slow-wave sleep, where your pituitary releases the largest pulse of growth hormone in the entire 24-hour cycle. Caffeine is a near-perfect structural mimic of adenosine. It fits the same receptors but does not activate them. It just sits there, occupying the slot. The half-life of caffeine is roughly 5 hours. Your 2 p.m. coffee is still at 25% strength at 10 p.m. While you fall asleep, that residue is still in the chair adenosine should be sitting in. Same workout, half the repair. That's not because you trained worse. That's because the repair window itself never opened, and the molecule that closed it is the same one you trusted to help you train harder in the first place. Before we get to what's actually happening, it helps to bury our myths. Caffeine does not clear overnight. With a 5-hour half-life, 10% of the dose is still circulating at 2 a.m. That's not nothing. Falling asleep is not the same as sleeping well. Sleep onset and sleep depth are separate mechanisms. You can pass out cold and still spend the entire night fragmented across shallow stages. Afternoon coffee is not safely far from bedtime. Slow-wave sleep peaks in the first 90 minutes after you fall asleep, not at 4 a.m. Any caffeine still in your system when your head hits the pillow lands on the exact window that matters. And decaf is not zero. Decaf cups carry 2 to 15 milligrams of caffeine, enough in sensitive sleepers to measurably shorten deep sleep. The mechanism doesn't live in alertness. It lives in what your sleep is allowed to do. While you trained, adenosine built up. By bedtime, that signal should reach a brain region that triggers the cascade into slow-wave sleep, the deepest stage, where the largest growth hormone pulse of the day is released. That hormone, downstream, drives the IGF-1 cascade that mediates muscle protein synthesis. It is also when most of your central nervous system recovery from training stress quietly happens. Caffeine, sitting on the same receptors adenosine needs, blocks the signal from arriving. The cascade either doesn't fire on schedule or fires shorter. Slow-wave sleep arrives blunted, sometimes by 20 to 30%, sometimes more, depending on the dose, the timing, and your individual metabolism. The growth hormone pulse that should have happened by 2 a.m. arrives smaller. The repair that should have been complete by morning partially didn't. The cleanest study on this comes from a sleep lab at Wayne State in 2013. Researchers gave subjects 400 milligrams of caffeine at 0, 3, and 6 hours before bedtime. Even the 6-hour group, caffeine taken in the late afternoon, lost about an hour of total sleep and a measurable chunk of slow-wave sleep, while reporting they slept fine. Their subjective sense and the actual EEG were not in agreement. Other research tracks growth hormone directly. When slow-wave sleep is suppressed, the nocturnal GH pulse falls, sometimes by half. This is the same family of mechanism that makes shift workers lose lean mass over time, that makes new parents lift like they're concussed, that makes one bad night feel like a deload week. Sleep architecture is the gate. Caffeine quietly holds it shut. You wake up convinced you slept well, and walk into the gym a step slow without knowing why. If you've ever had a string of decent sleeps and still walked into the gym sluggish, struggled with weights that should have been easy, watched your numbers stall while your diet and training stayed the same, this is the candidate mechanism. The coffee you barely thought about wasn't keeping you awake. It was thinning the part of sleep that does the actual work. You weren't lazy or undertrained, you were under-repaired. And the gap between feeling fine and being recovered is wider than most lifters realize because the body has no instrument on the dashboard for it. So caffeine isn't the enemy. Pre-workout caffeine is one of the most studied performance aids in sport. Morning coffee before noon has almost no effect on that night's sleep architecture in most people. The problem is the afternoon and evening cup, the one nobody questions, because it doesn't feel like a stimulant by then. Move your last caffeine to before 11 a.m. Hold it there for 7 nights. Then watch what your hardest set feels like on the morning of day 8. You'll know. What time was your last coffee yesterday? Drop the hour below.